Mackenzie Johnston with Tri-State Livestock News, bringing you discussions concerning fair cattle markets. Today we have the opportunity to chat with Jerod McDaniel. He is a rancher near Texhoma, Oklahoma. So to start off with, can you just tell me a little bit about your background and your involvement within the cattle industry?
Okay. Let's see. I guess you could say I started in the cattle industry technically when I was about in sixth grade. How old is a person in sixth grade? They would be, oh boy, I'm going to butcher this one, about 12. Yeah, 12, 13. So anyway, my granddad, we bought some cows whenever I was about that age. He bought two or three cows and some Herefords from a local guy. And so that was the first time I was actually involved in the cattle industry as a cattle owner. He purchased some cows and I went out and he ran them on his ranch whenever I was young. And then I guess that would be 4 or 5 years after that. I was 18. The plan was I was going to go to college, get an education, come back and work with granddad, take over the farm, that whole scenario. As it turns out, it didn't happen. Fell ill when I was a freshman in college and was unable to take care of the business, but still alive, still living at home and all that stuff. So I basically kind of fell into a management position at 18 and started in the cattle industry then by default. Since then, I'd say our herd size is basically, I think it's grown. I think at that time we were maybe at 250, 300 cows, and we're around 500 cows right now. Acreage wise, our farm is about doubled in size since I took over with leases and different things. I've grown it. I've not really on purpose. It's more or less attrition in society. It's a lot of farmers got out in natural gas spikes of 2007. A lot of hardships happened in the 2000s, again in the droughts in 2012. Some guys that weren't as well capitalized as I was, coming from a legacy operation, couldn't, maybe they had to get out. And so I expanded, took on more leases, was able to buy some land from family members, do other things. And I've been fortunate to make it work. So that's where I'm at and how I got involved in the cattle industry. We're a cow calf operation. I've ran stockers on wheat pasture. I've tried all the bootleg cow crap that you can think of, buy heifers, breed them, sell pairs. If you've been in the cattle business long enough, you've had every idea come to fruition and probably fail. So that's my involvement. I'm an active spectator and participant in the cow calf industry. So
sounds like a great deal. And where are you located at exactly again?
In Texhoma, Oklahoma, and we have some land in Texas. So I'm right on the border of it's about 100 miles north of Amarillo, just for people, geographical location, and kind of be about the same south of like Garden City, Dodge City, maybe southwest of those. So I'm essentially right in the middle of the packing belt. There's Seaboard has a huge packing house for pigs in Guyman. So, the corporate hog industry is here, and Cactus, Eder, Del, there's tons and tons of packing houses. We're right in the middle of that. So.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Yeah. No, it makes for interesting times for sure.
I'm sure. So there's been a lot of issues rise to the surface over the past year. What do you feel are some of the biggest issues within our cattle industry and our cattle markets currently?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Where do you start? And this is where whenever it's issues or something, it's hard to say in a not negative way, because there's a lot of great people in our industry, and there's a lot of great people doing work in our industry, in organizations and everything else. And then also the base industry, the producers, the people that are in the feedlot industry, even the people that work in the packing industry, the people in the plants, the people working on the floors, the truckers that haul them in. It's an amazing, amazing industry we have. And it's all basically built kind of independent of each other. And it's really a cool spirit that at one time it all worked really well. And I'm young. I'm 40. I'm about to turn 44. I mean, relative in the cattle game, I'm a youngster. Even though I've been doing it for now on 20 some odd, I'm not going to do the math, a lot of years. Enough. I've been doing it enough to say that I know what I'm talking about. I'll put it that way. Now, I do think that there's some dysfunction in the transaction that goes whenever you take cattle that have been fed and then they go to the slaughterhouse. I think there's a massive dysfunction right there. It's all legal. I mean, I don't think you can really have a moment where you say that it's somehow, is it immoral? You bet. Is it illegal? I don't know that you can prove that in courts, but it's also based upon kind of this monkey system that's set up with weird regulations. And honestly, I don't know that the mess can be untangled, because I think that the legislative angle has been tried for so long, and nothing against those guys. But if you want to get something done and you have the capital or the clout to do it, you get it done pretty quick. If you just drag it out and drag it out, and it's not that sometimes things aren't possible, and that's okay. It's nothing against people that say, well, we're just going to keep going until it happens. Well, maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe you should, maybe you should think twice. Maybe throw that bitch in reverse. I'm sorry about the language, but it's just, sometimes you've got to reevaluate where you're at. And okay, like, and I'll just go, there's a lot of great organizations. Some of them look at the legislative angle. Some of them look at the judiciary angle. Some of them look at the let's have a great big party and persuade everybody to think this way party. I mean, I don't know that all that even matters anymore, because the game's it's kind of rigged in a way that everybody who produces an animal has really, various slots that you go into and you fill this need, or you get into an alt market where you get the premium bag, but it requires you to do a little more legwork, and there's hybrids of ways to market animals, but nothing that's really an industry standard other than the one that basically puts the producers under the foot and the leverage of everybody else in at the back end of the industry. Now, speaking of this in philosophical terms, because that's the only way you can address it without really stepping on everybody's toes at one time. In my opinion, that's the only way you can communicate this, is that I don't hate people in retail, and I don't hate people in wholesale markets, or even, the people in the packing houses. I have a problem with their ethics in the way that they, align and don't price and basically control the chain speed. They control the flow of the traffic, thereby controlling the market, thereby controlling the price. And then once they get it, they have the power to go in the back end. And same way with retail. I mean, everybody's got their margin, but and this is going to sound ugly, but it's the truth, man. It's a lot of the problem falls right at the feet of the producers themselves, because we've refused to take the bull by the horns and just say, screw you, we're not going to take this anymore. I mean, it's where I'm at. I have to market cattle through the system because I have a business like anybody else. It generates cash flow. I'm going to feed them. I'm going to sell them. I'm going to do what I need to keep the operation fluid and going. But at the same time, I'm going to go off and look for tangents, look for some ways of making a network where I can find, maybe a rogue processor who doesn't care about, staying in line with everybody else and wants to go out and market his hook space on an open free market that's willing to say, what's this worth? Because if you start bidding that out instead of just playing the old, oh, you're not on a list, you don't get this. Like, what other industry does that shit?
That's
I mean, I'm just being frank and being honest. The way this is, it's like, oh, you're on a list, or you're my buddy, or I, you're gonna do what I mean. And there's not enough packing house because of regulate. Everybody knows the minute you build a big one, that's the end of the game, and then the guy who builds it is washed out. Okay, so we all have discovered, we all know that the game is essentially rigged when we all continue to play it. My thing is that you have to, okay, where are you going to go? What's the opportunity? So when you ask, what are the problems? There's multiple problems across the entire industry, and they're layered in over generations. And there are a lot of people who just don't want to get off their ass and do any more than they already do. So, I mean, self-included, I mean, there's a mirror. I'm right here, man. I'm working towards an idea of like a beef dispensary where you can take stuff from other people. You're not just selling. Yeah. I can sell you hamburger in Walmart. I can sell you at Walmart prices. I can do that all day long. I could probably even make it work. I could probably even make a little bit more money than I do right now. And I'll still be at the same spot as I was. And then my kids will be in the same spot. No one's getting any higher. No one's getting what is the upward mobility of becoming a rancher right now? You get to be on a grid so you can sell better to get a little bit more, get a tiny bit more money. You spend all that time on money, genetics, cattle, hay, being out busting ice, you do all that shit so you can get just a little bit more money for your cattle. Congratulations. You've done a great job of making yourself a better servant to someone else. I mean, yeah, I'm a servant. I'll be in first to admit it, but I'm going to do my damnedest to try to come up with a way to sell direct or sell with people who are more aligned with that. And it's not an ideological, like, I want to be with the tree huggers. It's not where it's at. I'm just tired of getting kicked. And so there we're at, so all encompassing. There's a lot of problems in the industry. You know, and here's the thing is now the next thing that people will say is like, well, what specifically? Well, I got 26 years of knowing where the money goes. And I don't have to show you. If you need to know that, you go find it because it's out there. I promise you, it's not that hard. And if you don't, then you're too stupid to have this conversation. And then that's the end of it. And that's, you know, I mean, that's where it is because there's only a handful of people that actually have the competence to have this conversation. So, you know, I hope people hear it. Now I'm being honest. and if they don't like it, I'm okay with that. I really am. It's because I'm not saying it to be liked or unliked. I'm saying it because somebody needs to say this shit in a manner and language that will resonate with the people who own cattle. Because guess what? Like, they're taking it because we're allowing them.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty. So in what you just said, you made the statement that what we've got going on within the cattle industry cannot be untangled. So if that's the case, and more people don't do what you said, like basically think of another way to make money or just become more innovative, and we continue to see more small to mid-sized producers drop out of the game because they can't make it, where do you see this industry going?
It'll be like the hogs. It'll be vertically integrated, but to an extent. I mean, there's always going to be the renegades and the rogues. You're not going to take on the Western, you know, geographical United States and then, like, you know, be owned by Walmart. Bullshit. And Bill Gates, whatever, go fly kite. You ain't got enough money. So go get bent. Like, that ain't gonna happen. So, I mean, the reality is there's always going to be, you know, a beef Afghanistan that's out there producing stuff for independent people. But there's going to be a lion's share of people that just fall in and say, yeah, I'm happy with like having my 2 days of glory raising this animal and handing it off at a young age to someone else. Like, retained ownership has to happen on a major level. I mean, but this story has been played out over and over and over again. If you look at the hitches out here, they pushed retained ownership early on, and it wasn't they were wrong. It's just that there wasn't an adoption, and if it was adopted, it morphed into the grid system, which today is just a different form of, you know, control. It's just like you think you have more control because you're marketing on a grid. Well, you're just not really. Yeah. Let me be honest, you don't. I mean, so I mean, every attempt that's been made to like work within the, you know, be a team player, work within the system. To me, looking grand scheme, the last 20, 30 years seems like an abysmal failure. I don't know who's been driving the bus, but they've been banging it into the damn guardrail the whole time. I mean, I've been in the industry. I mean, I can't say I'm not part of it. I mean, I've been in the back of the bus partying, obviously not paying attention. But but seriously, how do we not look at this and say, what the hell, guys? Per capita consumption. I mean, and they're like, well, we're spending more money. Like, yeah, they're spending more money on beef, and less of it is coming to the guys who raise the damn cattle. I don't think that's a win in my book. I think that's an obvious, glaring failure in our industry. I don't see and so you talk about the future. Yeah, there'll be guys they're glamorous independent producers who can do it. And I'll probably be one of them. I'll probably still be out here banging on this stuff long after this goes. But there'll be a lot of guys who just fold into that. You know, it's like independent hog producers. They'll just go away. I mean, they will cease to exist. Or if they don't exist, they'll serve as just feeding the supply into the system that then takes it and morphs it into your Walmart products. And then the next thing that'll happen is that the big guys will get in and they'll start their own little program of, you know, branded products, because then they'll say, well, we want to ensure that you can get it from that ranch. And by that ranch, they'll mean the guys who are out there maintaining the legacy of ranching. So it's weird because you go and promote and you do really talk about what we do as an industry, as a, you know, raising your family, the hardiness of the land, everything that you do that you believe in. And then these jerks go and trade on your name, because then they're like, you know, they'll put up this big sign that's like beef, you know, with a rancher and a picturesque mountain peak background. It's like, well, the guy who ground that beef didn't have anything to do with that animal, but he wants the damn picture. He wants the lifestyle. He wants the legacy. He wants everything associated with the animal, except for the guy, you know, he doesn't give a shit about the guy who's raising it. So that's where the thing fell on its ass, however many years ago. I don't know. And frankly, I don't give a shit how it fell apart. I mean, it's like, if somehow we assign the right blame, that makes it all better. Right. No, that's all this is. All this is a pissing contest to see who can blame who. It's all broke. You start over, ground zero. That's why, I mean, I honestly, I did podcasts with all the organizations. And after that, I really stopped and thought about it and thought about the conversations that I had. And I came away with a pretty cathartic moment of like, the wheels are, I mean, they're gone. There's nothing. I mean, I don't know who's driving it. It's, again, back to the bus analogy. It's good people. Then I'm not saying they're bad people. This is where you come into the crux of the thing, is that you say something bad about a group and they think you're castigating the individuals. It's not that. It's not that those people aren't working hard. I believe they're diligently working towards a mission that is not accomplishable with their current plan. And history be what it is. They've all been working at it a hell of a lot longer than most people, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere good, you know. I remember in a podcast we were championing how they got the damn buzzards, you know, where they could shoot a buzzard or something, and it was very surreal to me. And at that time, we were also going through massive, you know, corruption, in my opinion, in the industry. It was very evident in the pricing and the way things were being played out. And it was almost like a severe lack of awareness, just an amazing lack of awareness. And I see that repeated over and over and over again. And willingly participated in it for a lot of years before, you know, kind of deciding to get my own shit together. So now I'm trying to look at the industry as an honest person and go from there and still raise cattle and still, you know, do it in a way that I can support a family. You know, it's not like this is like the mission that I'm like going to, you know, crawl on and die. I've got other crap going on too. So, I mean, where do you go with that? You got to start with an honest conversation. You got to start with like, somebody has to say it, like throw that dead skunk on the table and let's talk about it. Because right now it's not happening. It's not, it's just, frankly, it's a bunch of people sitting there throwing insults at each other like little children.
So do you think we'll ever be able to not act like children? Do you think our cattle organizations will ever be able to get on the same page and work towards similar goals?
I really think if you can get someone, if you can show them how it works better, a different way, I think that's kind of where you're at, is you have to, again, goes back to life. If you can talk about how you should do something, but until you go and do it yourself, you're just like everybody else. You're just saying shit. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I've got to go figure out how I can, like, literally, if I'm a producer, how am I going to take the cattle that I raise? And I even have a farming operation that I can kind of morph into. I can feed the cattle. I can raise everything. I can be completely vertically integrated. How do I get either myself or someone else to slaughter this animal and pack it? And so then I can then market it. Or can I make an agreement with someone who has integrity and then do business with that person? Like, why that's where I'm at, because that's the one transaction that is lacking, is me being able to either procure a hook, buy it, have it, you know, line it up. I've got cattle. I've got a way to, I can take the product right up to where it's being butchered. And if that means that I have to build a damn butcher shop, then maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I haven't explored that, because that's the last thing I want to do. I'm not going to go make like contingent plans and have that be the first one. If building a packing house is the absolute last thing I want anything to do with personally. But if that's what it comes to, then I guess that's where we're at. You know, I would hope that you say, can we come together? Yeah, I think it could. I think there's absolutely no need to have a beef revolution where everybody goes and does their own networking. There's absolutely, it can work just like it is. But until one group, namely the producers, choose to stand up for themselves and prove that they're willing to go do it, and tell the other people to step off, then we're just servants. We're just raising it for them to do whatever they want with it. So let's be honest. That's the first step, is how do we as producers, you know, have enough integrity or self-respect to demand more than what, you know, because if they believe that the product is that great, you know, they obviously think it's awesome because they mark it up and they put you know, they, and no offense to the back end, that's their business. They've been honest. It's really hard to not fall into that, like, woe is me deal. Cause I mean, shit, I've done it a lot of years, but we're giving it to them.
An issue that has been pretty hot over the last year is the beef checkoff. Do you have any input on this?
I mean, again, it's kind of one of those old dinosaurs. It's like, I found that again with the podcast interviews and just generally observing over social media and even participating in the mudslinging for years, being part of it. And then finally kind of looking back and realizing that even with any influence, no matter, I mean, it's not going away right now. If you want to vote it out, fine. I mean, is there something to be done with it? Maybe. I actually in the BTFD YouTube stuff I did, I interviewed Polly Ruland, who is now, I believe she's the head of the soybean checkoff. She was actually the head of the beef checkoff at the time. I did an interview with her. Really, really enjoyed it. I think she's a great person. Don't have any issues with the way she ran it. And, the entity itself is not a problem. Maybe the way they allocate funds is like seriously questionable. And also, again, back on my soapbox, how do we expect the world to be moved for $1 a head? However many times you sell it. I mean, is that, I mean, yeah, they get the money, whether they do the job or not. Frankly, that's what it comes down to. But if they did their job to the most perfect expectation of the most highest critic out there, is that enough? Like it is like, I mean, are we going to say, oh, you did your job good enough, so that $1 a head, good job, we'll give you another one? Like, are we so dependent on somebody else carrying the water for us that that's the only method and the only means that we have to promote our product? I mean, and I'm guilty of it too. Like I bitch and moan about $1 a head, and it sucks because you really do. It comes in it does come in a couple $1,000 a year. That's real money. It's real money, and it sucks because it goes to someone who's pissing it away. Is that the only reason why? If I had that beef check, if I had that $2,000 back, let's just say that's the number. I mean, I don't know. Say I had it 2,000. Am I gonna do a better job? No, I don't know. I can buy $2,000 worth of podcast equipment and do okay, but the reality is like, why are we dependent on $1 a head? Like that's a dumb idea to begin with. If you really think it out, we should all just promote our product. Right now, my product is cattle. My product is not beef, but yet it's real easy to be like, hey, go eat some beef because that's what. Our product is that, but we as producers don't own that, and I think that's where a lot of the problem comes in. So
through the pandemic, there's been quite a push for fake meat, whether it be cultured, grown in a petri dish, or plant-based. Do you think this fake meat has any chance of gaining some traction and taking away from our beef market?
I think it'll probably gain traction. I think it's well funded. I mean, if you look at, I think I saw the latest one, got 29, 30 million. I mean, people vote with their wallet. People have money, venture capitalists have money. A lot of it is kind of a left ideology, whether that's the source of it or not. I mean, people want to fund feel good organizations. And right now the meat, the anti-meat, whether it be for climate, for politics, I mean, a lot of red state people live in an area that would be, considered very heavily supported by beef. I mean, it's a weird quagmire that you have like people from one political party kind of coming against like a sect of protein producers against beef specifically. And then you have a climate organization worldwide that are kind of like barreling down against, again, beef specifically. But really, they're not, and this is the irony. They're targeting fake meat. But again, the beef people, the packers, that part of the industry aren't taking the hit. It comes back to, it's let's make regulations against cattle, against the things that carry the beef to the people who then make the money that could then be used to fight the people who make up the bullshit about climate. So when you draw a big enough circle, you find out just how screwed everything is, because the money to fight the misinformation or fight the bullshit is there. It's being gobbled up and used for other things. It doesn't go back to the producers. And part of that's the producers years ago were like, oh, I'm going to give you $1 a head. Go make sure my crap sells. Okay.
Yeah. And here we are today.
And here we are. And legitimately, we're like, hey, we gave you our dollars. And then they're like, well, you can get on there, you can be a representative, you can be part of the committee, you can be part of the process. No, you can be part of the people who go sit down, shut up, and don't say a damn word because they don't want to piss off their neighbor that they're going to have to go drink beer with here in a little bit at the bar, because who wants to do that? I mean,
Right.
that'd be a shitty conference if you stood up and made everybody mad. Nothing really gets done. I mean, it's just kind of I make a joke about the shiny boot stuff, but it really does stick in my craw whenever you go see a big old meeting and their damn banner is there, and it's so you can stop and take a picture with your boots on this little outline, like saying I was at the deal. It's like, I don't know. That's just walks all over the industry every time I see that. It's just like, because guess what? There's probably still people that have real shit on their boots that are out doing their work, and they're getting shit on by people who are up there not. And I feel like the people who are out there doing the work are the ones getting their ass handed to them, especially in light of this snow and everything else. And again, for what? So that we can keep feeding cattle into this system that doesn't give a shit, you know? So again, it's time for us to stand up for ourselves, however that has to happen, you know, be it you make your own market or finally enough people join. I mean, you talk about captive supply is what kind of gives them leverage. I'm not going to go into it. If you don't know it by now, you just, good luck to you. But you could take captive supply and turn it on its head and say you captive, you know, you get enough producers to sign an oath of like, hey, we will do that. You know, and I know it's been tried before. It's the same dance. Everybody tries the same thing. Doesn't mean you don't stop trying. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. I know that ultimately my goal is if I got 500 cows, that's 500 animals. I bet you I can find 500 people that think my animals are worth more than the stuff going somewhere else. That's my goal. You know, if I can do it, then I'll go tell someone else how they should do it. But I can't tell anybody else how they should do it because I myself have not done it. So, I mean, I've sold meat. I mean, I've done I got a freezer full of beef. I'll sell my hamburger. I've done it, but not done it. Not like legit. Let's throw up a store. Let's throw up an online website. Like, there's people out there doing it right now. Hats off to them. You know, I've interviewed them on the podcast. There's people out there legitimately selling their entire herd through their own discipline. Again, I've taken up running, and whenever I kind of morphed into this whole thing of we're getting, your discipline of doing your own thing or making yourself better makes your life better. Well, if in the same way as a cattle producer, if you make your decisions better, if you do everything, just try to make it a little bit better all the time, eventually, yeah, things are gonna happen. But I don't know. I think a lot of personal responsibility has to come in before we can really claim that, we may be beginning taken advantage of, but it's because we're allowing it to happen. So.
Mm-hmm. So President Biden has not been in the White House too long. However, we have seen him make quite a few changes. How do you think the Biden administration will affect the cattle industry and agriculture overall?
I think they're going to throw a mountain of money at agriculture. I think it's going to be kind of that thing that produce at all costs, because that's typically how I see a lot of the, again, doing it for 26 some odd years. I've seen several administrations of different types of presidents and Congress. And I began going to the government office in 96, which was the beginning of freedom to farm. And I've seen every morph nightmare adaptation of government policy since then. And I've yet to see an original idea. I just see where they take it and they reform this thing based on the politics of the day, and then that kind of carries forward. And so, and the flavor that I anticipate coming from the current administration is just open the floodgates, just send as much money as you can to the heartland so that they can keep buying tractors, so that the people making them can make tractors and everybody has jobs. And I think it's basically a form of direct stimulus. You already see it. And the flip side of that is they kind of have to, because now you've injected so much capital into the economy that it's unfathomable what inflation could do once it takes a hold. And the flip side of that is then you have massive deflation. It's going to be a very violent economic time period, mostly predicated on control that I think is, they're attempting to placate people, and farmers. One of them is I think they're just going to hand money out. I mean, Trump was doing it leading up to the election. I would imagine they continue doing that. So, which will further disrupt markets and allow people to overproduce, and it'll be glorious because prices will get cheap again, and we'll be right back where we started. So if you have an outlook of making money in the next 2 or 3 years, now might be a time to think about shoring up, paying down some debt, doing, just do normal sensible things. Get yourself in a position where it does go bad, like you're in a position, because one day the money will stop, whether they don't have it to give or whether it's just not popular anymore. People have decided that in order to participate, you have to be a certain percentage of an ethnicity. And I mean, you think it's crazy, but that's literally on the table right now. So, I mean, don't be surprised if you don't see a bunch of farms become majority owned by women, because again, everybody's just figures out, people just figure out how to play the game. They change the rules and people figure out how to play them. And that's what's going to happen. And I believe that there's just tons of money coming. So, and the downfall or after effect from that, I don't know, but I think that's the general direction my brain tells me is what things going to happen.
Do any of their climate regulations, their Green New Deal approach, does any of that concern you, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it all concerns me because it's not based on reality. It's even if you try, I mean, their science is handpicked. I mean, it's like, well, let's go find a certain report that supports our narrative or our ideology, or the ideology. It's not even theirs. It's whatever the poll said that they needed to say in order to get elected. That is what the regulations and things are being based upon. It has nothing to do with reality. And most everything that is being talked about, again, it's complete lack of awareness. When you really start to look at across a lot of bureaucracies and a lot of everything else, you just start to see people who are there who really don't know why they're there. And then, and I think the coronavirus was amazing at highlighting how this is true and every facet of leaderships. There's no leaders. There's a bunch of actors who did really well to get votes and ended up in places of power. And then when they were called upon to do real leadership stuff, there was a massive failure in every system. I mean, just it's catastrophic on every level, and how most of society has became, just in time. And that extrapolates out to everything.
So as we both know, and everyone else knows, agriculture is a tough industry to get into, incredibly high input costs, and land is tough to come by. Do you have any advice for any young farmers and ranchers that are looking to get into the industry?
Yeah, I'd say, if you don't have a way in, start working for somebody who has an interest in promoting you as a person, not as you as an employee, as because you do good work, but like someone who says, hey, would you have an interest in like learning how to how this works, like how the cattle deal? Maybe that's a family member, maybe it's not. Mm-hmm. Is that person easy to find? Nope. Are there a lot of them? Not really. Are they out there? Yes, there are a lot of people. You look at Casey Kimbrell, you follow him look at him up on Twitter. He did an amazing thing where he actually had his employees. He worked out a system where I don't know, and I'm going to butcher this. Please don't, I think that his employees are kind of buying him out or taking over an aspect of his business. I think it's a hashtag planning opportunity, but there is a unique example of an opportunity presented to people who work for a good man. And that's one. I'm sure there are others. I'm sure there are. And you look at the aging population. If you just honestly, if you want to do it, go to someone who's old and maybe doesn't have kids or grandkids. I mean, be honest about your situation. If someone's got a whole bunch of kids and they're going to do it, maybe that's not where you need to go, talk to someone, be honest with yourself, go have a conversation with someone that might need someone to take over and say, hey, can you teach me how to farm? Not teach me how to set the plow. Don't teach me how to ride a horse. Don't teach me how to brand an animal. Don't teach me how to be a real good hired hand. Teach me how to farm. Teach me how to ranch, how to actually do the business, how to put up with the bullshit, how to find the bullshit. I mean, that if you want to do it, that's what you do. That's what I tell a young person. Now, if you're not ready for that, if you want to drive tractors and you want to ride a horse, there's tons of that too. There's amazing opportunities for tons of that. Go do that. Don't kill yourself and your family trying to be a rancher and run a business if that's not what you want to do. If you want to do it, then just like opening anything, be serious and go line your shit up and start figuring it out.
Yeah,
that's the answer. I mean, I wish there was a magic way, but that's the only way I know. I was fortunate that I was involved in an operation that already existed, so I can only tell you that angle.
So, do you have any thoughts on the corn market? The corn and soybean market that we've seen.
I got a bunch. It all stems back from, just the printing machine. You have a pandemic that happened worldwide that basically shocked supply chains, and I've covered this, and I think I did an interview about a year ago, and we really went in depth with it. A fellow Twitter person, Chai Girl, I hate saying her name because I butcher it, but follow her on Twitter. She's very smart, very very smart. We had a podcast and we talked about this, how a lot of the world said all of a sudden, hey, we're stopped. We're done. We're closing Arby's. You don't get your toilet paper, whatever. And we all lived it. Don't describe it. The world stopped, and so did everybody's like consumption, or it didn't. Like everybody still ate food. Like the idea that restaurants closed, that people are going to stop eating, that never made sense. But yet people kept talking about that. Well, they just ate at home, and they probably ate more because now they're sitting at home and like they don't have to worry about looking bad because they I don't know. To me, the world kept going even though they thought they didn't. So it's almost like everybody hit pause. Everybody hit pause on the supply chain, but the consumers kept eating. And now we've ate into our excess. And I don't mean like physically ate into like there's not enough there. Metaphorically, society has experienced some scarcity. They finally went to a meat market and there wasn't meat in the counter. That's never happened before. They couldn't buy toilet, but that's not an anomaly in other parts of the world. But for Americans, it's the first time they actually had to deal with, you can't have your stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we want it. It's like, well, you're spoiled, entitled kids. You can't have your stuff. And they've been told that. So there's a reality that's been settled. It's a precedence has been set that somebody will tell Americans you can't have this. Americans don't like that. I think that there's a subculture developing of people that are very adamant about, we will not be told what to do. And that's going to then correspond with, again, back to the original beef idea of you can market direct, you can do all these things because these supply chains were wrecked. Now, back to the original question of the corn. It all ties together in that corn supplies, China wrecks their economy. The whole thing goes to hell. The boats stop going back and forth. All of a sudden, they stop buying beans because Trump gets in a horrible, whatever he does. It's a comedy of errors. You to understand it, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Trump's pissing off China. It becomes a big mess. Long story short, China still needs beans. They stop buying from us, buying from Brazil. Brazil runs out. Now they got to buy them from us. Well, we can't get them there. We can't move them around because this stuff's all messed. So imagine like when you're towing someone and you back up and there's a lot of slack, and you're the guy in the pickup that's about to get towed. You can see the slack coming out of it, and that's what I feel like the grain market is at. You're sitting in the driver's seat, and you can see everybody said we don't need this because we have tons of USDA, and everybody else says we have tons of surplus. Everything's fine. Nobody needs it. That's like when the guy's backing up and hooking up the chain. And then what's happening now is the world is waking up and saying, oh, the USDA doesn't really know what they're talking about. There's really not as much surplus. We have a global pandemic that we still haven't quite figured out, that may not even be a pandemic. We have all this things going on that are distracting the world. Oh, and by the way, we just increased the US dollar supply by 40 to 50% in the course of 18 months. All that leads to me that we're sitting in the driver's seat, metaphorically, of the stuck vehicle, and the pulling one, the people who make the goods, the track, the people who raise the farm. Like, we're still going, we're full speed ahead. And right now that supply chain, the slack is coming out and it's about to hit. And when it hits, that's when I think you're going to see the massive inflation spike. So then you have, when I talk about, I think corn and soybeans are going up, I think it's based on that. You're going to have, and then you have tons and tons of money in the market chasing what isn't there, which has already been now backed up by fundamentals. So I don't know what the top is. I don't think we're anywhere near what the possible number of high on corn and soybeans. And that's my logic and reasoning for it. I have nothing to gain by hiding it. I've already said my piece daily on social media, but other than that, I think there's genuine reasons why it's going to be a shipwreck, and it's going to be, and if I'm wrong, then we're still sitting here at $5-6 corn at some good prices. Now let's get into the animal protein market. Do you want to talk about how China now is another round of, ASF? You want to get into corn demand. Well, they figured out they can't feed table scraps to all their animals because that's how the ASF transfers their food products. So now we have to feed them actual grain. Oh, turns out we don't actually have as much grain as we thought we did. Again, it's a giant story that's all connected. But now you have a reemergence of maybe another ASF. Their protein supply isn't solved. So they're still going to buy it from everybody who has it. Americans and all the other countries have it. They just haven't quite figured out how to get them to pay more is I think where we're at. And as a producer, my long-term objective is to hold everything I can off the market as long as possible. That's how I've been operating for the last 10 to 12 months. And I'll continue to operate until, at the last minute, like, hey, you need some money. All right, we'll sell this. And that's my marketing plan. And then it'll change accordingly as I see the world change. So as you said that you really don't know where the top is when it comes to corn and soybean prices. What do you think about folks feeding cattle? I mean, what does that look like for that? I mean, the price of getting a steer fat and distillers, I don't know what it's like in your neck of the woods, but it's darn hard to get a hold of up here. And if you can, you're paying an arm and a leg. So, I mean, the cost. It's a weird.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a weird twist on. Okay, you look at distillers. Maybe, I mean, you got tons of money going to come into green energy. Who knows that we won't see, distillers get cheap again. But that may just offset the other costs going in. Yeah, anybody that fed cattle back whenever corn got expensive probably needs to just crack that journal out and see what they said at the beginning of that. And if it didn't work, don't do that. Obviously, you got a chance to buy the board, hedge against some inflation if that's what you think. I mean. I raise cattle. I mean, I could tell you one thing I look at is what am I going to have to give up to raise a circle of corn or to raise a circle of feed versus just raising that circle of corn direct, because the market will overshoot on the top. There will be a point that it makes no sense for me to buy corn to feed to my cattle. Mm-hmm. The economic game then is to sell the cattle and go raise corn. I mean, it happened in my life. It's happened in my lifetime more than once, 2 or 3 times actually. But I kept the cattle, like an idiot. I still have cattle through it all. In fact, I retained heifers some of the last time. So I didn't go buy them, but I didn't sell some. So, yeah. I mean, I'm in it for the long haul. I really think that's part of the last couple of years is where, I look at some of the stuff. Our operation has been around for 100 and some years. A lot of our fences are falling down. A lot of stuff needs to be upkept. And the only way that can be done is with the true commitment to, like, you're going to be here and you're going to do this. And that means whether or not, I may have to give up some revenue on farming to continue to raise, have hay to feed the cattle because storms happen and you go through hay and you need, like, I will make the decision to not raise grain because that's my choice, but how will everybody else and their decisions, how will that interact? I don't know. I see the easier it gets for Midwest farmers to be Midwest farmers, they will do that till the day they can, I don't think any of them have any desire to be a rancher or own livestock. I think there's some of them that are trying it and they're innovative. Their idea of livestock is a livestock barn. That's livestock. That's not the way I look at livestock. And that's not how I really want to ever have them personally. It's fine for the guys to do. No harm, do your thing.
That's really all I have for questions. Do you have any other topics you want to talk about with the cattle industry or agriculture, or any other thoughts that you just want to share?
I guess more anything I tell everybody, just go, really try to enjoy your time and enjoy your life. Just go do something fun, because this crap's always going to be here. I think the coronavirus has been great. It's shown me a lot of things that I were right there in front of me. And when you were forced to, like, kind of put down everything else, like, we literally stopped going to every game, we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity in our life to have pause and really a time to reflect. And it was really cool. And our oldest kids, we got to work on the ranch with them. And, like, we were in a legit drought for the first 6 months last year. We did, like, drought cowboy stuff. You haul hay, you scoop out dry tanks because you got to fill them up with water. You do the crap. And we did it together as a family. And it really dawns on you that, we're so busy doing stuff all the time that we forget about the reason and purpose of like why we even ranch. Is it to raise cattle? Is it to that? Is it to raise kids? I don't know that I've answered that. I definitely think I have refocused on family and everything else. And the farming and ranching comes separate or secondary, honestly. So my advice is to find your path to get to that. I'm much happier with that setup. And then you also find the ways to get it all done.